I want to say thank you for calling Community First Outreach. Why don't you go ahead and tell people kind of like what is your story, what's happening, and how can we all get involved in helping you?
Well, basically, I'm 29 years old, fixing to be 30, and been diabetic for 27 years. And there for a long time, I did really well with it, and now the doctors are basically telling me that I am insulin resistant, which means that my body doesn't accept the insulin like it's supposed to over a certain amount of time. It'll do good on a certain insulin regimen, and then it'll just stop working. And things just have been going really downhill. I just recently had to have 5 of my toes amputated because of complications of the diabetes. And over the last couple of years, I've talked to several endocrinologists, which are basically special doctors for diabetics, and they told me, hey, if you don't get an insulin pump, you taking shots is just basically a waste of time. It'll help for right now, but if you do not get this, you have a life expectancy of about 1 to 5 years.
Right. Yeah. The
And
insulin shot's just basically a temporary fix. It's not the
yeah,
solution.
I've been diabetic so long that now my body rejects just shots. And basically what the insulin pump does is it would work like an artificial pancreas, which pancreas is the organ in your body that takes all your sugars, starches, carbohydrates, and stores them in. It turns it into a way for your body to store this fat to use it as energy later. Without the insulin, your sugar and all that just runs to your bloodstream, and it gets thicker and thicker and thicker to the point that it'll basically stop your heart because your blood will be so thick from it. And my orthopedic surgeon that did the surgery to remove my toes, he basically gave another opinion of what the doctors had already told me. If you do not get this insulin pump and you do not get your sugars under control, we understand that you're doing diet, you're doing exercise, all that's fine and well, but if you do not get your sugars under control, you have 5 years. There's no ifs, ands, or but about it.
And that's at
And
max, right? That's the most you can
that's
get.
max. In 5 years, I'll be dead.
Yeah.
35 years old.
Just briefly
So,
there, you mentioned that you had your toes cut off. Why don't you go into a little bit of detail? Obviously, you were working 2 jobs at the time, you had told me in the past. And what were the conditions that you were working in that it actually led to the toes having to be removed? And, of course,
well,
how many?
I was working in a basement. Their drain in their basement had become clogged, and we actually had to go in there with an auger, and the sub pump just wasn't doing its job, and we had to go stand in this water with an auger and try to clear out the drain. Well, the boots that I had on apparently had a hole in it or just weren't water safe or anything, and my foot got extremely saturated. Well, 3 days after, I started noticing, you ever stuck your hand in water and your fingers become really wilted?
Yeah, like raisins.
Well, it did that on the first 2 toes, my big toe and the second toe. And one day I was taking a shower, and I washed across my foot, and the skin came back. And I noticed 2 really big, like, sore spots that were being sores. And I ended up going to the hospital about it, and they immediately admitted me. And I stayed on IV antibiotics for a week. It was Zosyn and Vicamycin. And they said, well, Mr. Kuznick, you don't have insurance. We can't keep you here until your toes heal completely. So we're going to send you home with some oral antibiotics, see how that goes, and hopefully the condition will straighten itself out. So I did that. Well, a week into it, my toes went completely bad. The infection had turned into staph infection with gangrene and actually had spread to 4 of my toes, everything but my pinky toe, basically. So I go back to the hospital, and they admitted me. And first, a doctor that does circulation, vascular doctor, vascular surgeon came in and said, well, you have good pulse and everything in those toes, so we don't think surgery is an option for you. And I said, okay, cool. Then they sent an orthopedic surgeon in, and then they did MRIs on my toes and noticed the infection had gone into the bone on all 4 toes. And 3 days later, I'm being opted for surgery that morning. And he said, look, we have to take 4 of your toes. There's no point in leaving the pinky toe. It would just be without cause. So they ended up having to amputate all 5 of my toes on my right foot.
Yeah. Well, plus I'm sure the infection was probably right there at the pinky also. So, you know, it's sad too because basically your poverty is what got you kicked out of the hospital because you simply just couldn't afford the insurance. You're working 2 jobs. You know, you're still barely making ends meet. And then on top of it, being diabetic, you know.
Yeah. I was working construction from 8 in the morning till 5 in the afternoon.
Right.
Going home long enough to take a shower and go straight to my other job, and I worked a restaurant from about 5:30, 6 o'clock till sometimes 2 o'clock in the morning because I was the only kitchen worker there, and ended up having to basically close the entire kitchen by myself.
It's just sad to hear so many cases where the working class man just always gets put down. And it's amazing how it happens so many times, but it's like the cost of living and insurances and everything just keeps going up. And, of course, you know, our way of life doesn't change. And the cost of bread keeps going up, but nothing else changes for us. We're constantly being bombarded with everything that we owe, and it's constantly a debt getting over our head. And it's just we're getting oppressed.
They told me for income based, my insurance would cost me $180 a month. Okay, I'm making minimum wage at both jobs, and you got to figure in the area that I live in, a 2-bedroom house to rent, or even a 1-bedroom apartment, is anywhere from $700 a month to $1,200 a month, just for 1 or 2 bedrooms, depending on what side of town you live in, unless you want to live in the hood.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to say it that way, but that's how it is.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. I mean, that's the world that we live in nowadays, and it's really, really sad. Economy is everything.
Yeah, and you think about brass tacks, and you break it down. Okay, you've got $600 to $800 in rent. You have $180 in insurance. You have about $200 for a power bill. You have about $75 to $100 for a water bill, gas, everything else. And honestly, I'm about $400 short every month.
Yeah. So, with that said, I mean, we all know the working class issues. I believe that. Taxes go up and our banks don't. We really want to touch base back on, with your situation. Now, obviously, you got no toes on one whole foot. You can't go back to work. You're not receiving any kind of disability or anything yet. Are you fighting? You're fighting to get that, correct? You haven't received it yet?
Yeah, I've been talking to a lawyer for the last year because I've already had health problems.
Right.
And they told me I could work up until the final decision as long as it was a few hours here and there. But, of course, I had one job that really was just, I don't know, I guess it'd be considered under the table.
Yeah. Well, the worst part is you could barely make ends meet when you're working 2 jobs. Now, working class or not, you're out of job because obviously you can't work with half a foot. So the bad thing is now society's just going to run all over you. And poverty got you in the situation because you couldn't even afford the good health insurance so you could even be helped from the hospital. They sent you home. You know, had you had money, all of these things could have been resolved. You still have a foot. Now, if you don't get money, you're not going to get the insulin pump. And then what? Then you're going to die. So literally, it's like that dollar bill is always constantly hitting you. Community First definitely wants to reach out and help you. And that's why that's why we're doing this interview with you right now, so we can get the word out. And that's why we've been in your corner, and we're going to still stay in your corner, because there's no reason that the simple dollar should mean that you have to lose more of your body, or even just enduring the surgeries and all the pain and the misery, and then, of course, the depression that comes with it. Because everybody knows when you go through something like this, it's traumatic. It really is. It's life-changing. It's altering, no doubt.
Definitely.
You need somebody in your corner, and that's what we're here for.
Well, I really do appreciate it. And I've looked on Facebook and I've seen some YouTube videos and I've seen what y'all have done for other people. I mean, I know that all of y'all are volunteer. Nobody gets a paycheck in your organization. And y'all are going out and you're spending hundreds of dollars on different people buying them food, helping with electric bills and whatnot. And I mean, it's really touching that there are people out there that really care, regardless of the demographics.
Amen.
And I really appreciate it.
Most definitely. That's what we're here for. That's why we form Community First. We hear these kind of stories all the time. And we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. We're sick and tired of watching all this bad stuff happen. And we're sick and tired of watching our people being downtrodden. Now is the time and day and age where we have to stop worrying about this rat race to the top and start worrying about protecting our own and literally pulling each other up by the bootstraps. Together as one people, we can take back this nation. We can do great things. We don't have to fight each other when we're all here together.